Hi guys, welcome back to a new episode of the PS2 Collector. So at the moment we are currently on 185 out of 4,376 games. We are nearly approaching 200 games down, and on this episode I have picked up the latest 5 games in my collection. They did come quite late in the post, but nonetheless they are here. Stay tuned, you definitely do not want to miss this. Right, so let's begin with the first game of this video. Game number 186 is Conflict Zone Modern War Strategy. For me personally, I don't play these type of games. There have been quite a few oddities such as Commandos 1 and 2, Fire Emblem on the Switch. Those are really great strategy games. But other than them two, I don't normally enjoy strategy games. Me personally, I've never played this game before. I have read the reviews and it did have its positives and it had its negatives. The positives were it was quite detailed, it ran typically well on the PC. On PS2 there were minor issues, but we get to that with the negatives. And the one thing that it did to set it apart from its competitors, such as Commandos, that it allowed you to put out fake units to deceive the enemy, which I thought was quite cool and creative. But that's the only thing that I can think of that it did differently compared to other games. The negatives, however, was the sound issues, the glitches, and the graphics was quite poor and have aged terribly. So if you're gonna buy this, be aware of that. If I had to give a rating for this game, it's easy in the middle between 5 and 6 out of 10. It's not the most terrible game, but it's not the greatest either. It's right in the middle. If you disagree with that, leave it down in the comments below. And that, my friends, is game number 186, Conflict Zone Modern War Strategy. So on to the next game, game number 187, and that is Airblade for the PS2, which was released in 2001 after the popularity of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise. There were a lot of companies that wanted to cash in at the time. So this game here, Airblade, is set in the future where hoverboarding is the extreme sport for the time. And for me, this game, now I'm gonna say something that's not controversial, but this game was absolutely ridiculously difficult for no reason, in my opinion, because people found the Tony Hawk Pro Skater franchise, that game was difficult, but it was fair. This game shows no mercy whatsoever, because if you manage to miss out on one try, you have to start the entire level over again from scratch. There's no checkpoints whatsoever. And the reason, or the stupid reason why the developers did that, because the game was short and they wanted to extend the players time with this game. And for me, that is a cheap shortcut, but there is slight fun to be had. The demo for this game was more popular than this, and that's saying something. But yeah, if you do enjoy games similar to Tony Hawk Pro Skater, and if you do enjoy futuristic games, give Airblade a go, because for £2 it is a fun game but frustratingly difficult. And that is game number 187, Airblade. On to the next game, game number 188. Is possibly one of the worst games ever, and that is History Channel, The Great Battles of Rome. This game, whatever can go wrong, has gone wrong. Graphics, crap. Gameplay, crap. Control scheme, crap. Everything about this game is utter crap. Now, do I justify spending £1.50 on this game where I could have got a bottle of Lucozade? the bottle looks like a good investment, if you ask me, because this game, they've got it completely wrong. Because I don't understand what the developers were thinking releasing this in the shape that it was in. There were many good games. So this game is like a strategy game, and it's like where you have to create like your tactics, and the battle visually plays out, but it just does not run well. It's very repeatable. There's no other gameplay than that. You just have to do the same thing over and over again. The graphics does get a bit glitchy and slows down every time you play, which is ridiculous for a game that was released in the PS3 era, let's just say that. But yeah, for me, avoid this game at all costs, because it is terrible, pathetic, and ridiculously, the reason why this was released is to this day mind-boggling, because I can't think of a positive to say about this game. For me personally, avoid at all costs. And that, my friends, unfortunately is game number 187, the History Channel, the Great Battles of Rome. And for lessons in the future, channels should avoid making video games, that's for damn sure. Right, on to the next game. Game number 189 is Lara Croft, the Angel of Darkness. And this game, wow, disappointing, absolutely disappointed with this game when it first came out. The only positive that I will give it is its narrative. It had a really good story, but the gameplay, it seemed rushed and unfinished. It had loads of issues, and the control scheme was again quite poor. The graphics were decent in the PS2 era, but the gameplay was dud, absolute dud. And this is where the decline of an amazing franchise was showing. This game for me killed the Tomb Raider franchise. The first 3 games were iconic, man. Like the PS1 games defined a generation. But after that, once it went to the PS2, it was not there anymore. And back in the day, Lara Croft was on everything. LucasAid posters, TV adverts. She was, I would call it, the face of gaming at one point, the most popular character in the world at one point. But in the PS2 era, it just disappeared, and it just lost its appeal. And the fan base for this franchise always go back to the original games. And with the release of the remaster of the first 3 games, which did sell well, and this might get released in the future series where they're gonna remake all these games. For me, I spent about £10 on this game just to get it back, because I had the game before but I lost it. I probably saw it lost somewhere, got lost in time, let's just say. And yeah, it was just disappointing, and it was sad to see a game starting off being one of the best games ever, one of the best franchises ever, to becoming a dud and forgotten over time. And it's sad to see. And if you want to play this game, go into it without playing the first 3, because you'll get a better experience, because you'll have high expectations if you play the first 3 games. But for me, unfortunately, I would avoid this game. I would just avoid it because it's not there anymore. I don't enjoy the Lara Croft games anymore, and this is where it began for me. If you want to disagree with that, leave it in the comments below, but for me, this is where it began. And that is game number 189, Tomb Raider, the Angel of Darkness. Right guys, the final game of this video, game number 190, is Capcom versus SNK2 Mark of the Millennium 2001. The presentation in this game is really good. The roster, you might as well call it Street Fighter versus King of Fighters. The crossover is one of the best I've ever seen. Look at the characters: Ryu, Ken, Blanca, Bison, Geese Howard, Terry Bogard, King. You know, there's so many great fighters in this game, so the roster is overstacked. I remember when this game came out in 2001, it was meant to be the fighting game of the year, but somehow, I don't know how, it lost out to Tekken 4, which was a tremendous shame. Tekken 4 is a good game, but for me, this just edged it. But you got to understand, it was a new millennium, and let's just say 2D fighting games were like passe, and gamers were looking at the more futuristic games such as Tekken 4, and that might be the reason why Tekken 4 got the nod over this game. But when it comes to 2D fighting games, in my opinion, I'm gonna say one of my favorite sports ever. I'm gonna say something that's controversial here. I think this might be in the top 4 or 5 greatest 2D fighting games of all time. For me, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is the #1 because that had an amazing roster in both the Capcom and Marvel franchises. But you gotta understand, not a lot of people played King of Fighters back in the day. Street Fighter 2 was the king of 2D fighting games, and SNK was the slight second. But anyways guys, if you've not played this game before, give it a go. It is an absolute ridiculously good game and a modern day masterpiece. And that, my friends, is the final game of this video. Game number 190. Marvel's or not Marvel's, Capcom, sorry, my bad, let me rephrase that, is Capcom versus SNK 2 Mark of the Millennium 2001. A mouthful of a title, but an epic sounding title at that. And that, my friends, is the final game of this video. If you have enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. If you want to know when my videos come online, click on the bell notification below. Anyways guys, until next time, and don't forget to subscribe. Take care guys.